Hi everyone, it's me, Darlene. I am back with episode 2 of the postage stamp quilt. If you're new to this series, there is a playlist link down below and also on the end screen. You can always visit my blog too, darlenemisho.com, because I have all my shit posted there also. I want to tell you a little bit first, before we go over to the sewing table. I want to tell you a little bit about how I have been going through this process. I have never put all these tiny squares together before, and I really enjoy piecing little things. It's very crumb quilt-like for me. So I put a bunch of 4 patches together since the last video, but then I wanted to start playing with strip sets so I could show you guys how I did those. And I cut a whole bunch of 2-inch strips. However, I wasn't taking into consideration that the 2-inch strips were actual 2-inch strips with my ruler and my rotary cutter. So when I sewed 4 of those strips together, I didn't have any excess, no wiggle room to trim. And I thought, I can't do this, but I had cut a whole bunch of fabric, and I had already made a bunch of tiny little 4 patches, so I said, okay, I'm just going to go with adding wider things around these pieces, because I want my 16 patches, you know, first I make 4 patches, 4 of those, so now I have a 16 patch. I want those to end up being 6.5 inches square with wiggle room, so I can trim them to 6.5. But because I cut my other strips an exact 2 inches, I had no wiggle room, and the 4 patches were coming out small. And instead of wasting all that I had done, I took the small 4 patches and matched them up with a bigger 4 patch and trimmed those. And then I put 2 bigger 4 patches on top, so it gave me extra in each direction. Oh my God, what a mess. But it's all working out for me. The only thing is that I absolutely have intersections that don't match. So I'm going to show you how to do it, a strip set, the other way that I figured out that's better for me. Let me just show you some intersections. Now this one isn't bad. This one is not bad at all. The intersections are looking pretty good. And you can see I do have some repeats. You're going to have repeats in the same blocks unless you have tons and tons of fabric. I do have tons and tons of fabric. I mean, many different prints. But I'm not going to go and, you know, unroll all these fabrics just to get different. So I'm repeating a lot. Now this one you'll see is off by a lot. Like, look at this black right here. See, there's the intersection here and then the intersection here. So that it's hard to see. I have to do things backwards. You can see this one goes like this, and then like this, and then like this. So that's off by a lot. But, I mean, really, look at it. When this is in a quilt top with a bunch of other 16 patches like this, who's gonna give a shit? No one, I promise. So I really do like it. But I'm going to take you over to the sewing table. I am going to show you the method with using 4 strips to make a strip set that way, and then I'm going to show you my method. All right, let's go. Here are the 4 strips that I will sew together to show you. First of all, you can absolutely do the entire quilt using the strip set method. And if you don't have a lot of prints, you can make your strips the whole width of the fabric. The only thing is, when you create a strip set, these 4 colors will always be together in the strip. You'll understand more when I get to that. So there'll be a lot of repetition of this exact sequence. I like to keep my strips shorter so that I can have more of a variety. So what you can do, if you really are good at 1/4 inch seams and you don't care about trimming, you think you're going to get it right every time, all your strips can be the exact same width. And it's up to you. 2 inches, 3 inches, 2.5, 3.5. You can cut all your strips, sew 4 together, and then you're going to cut this way whatever width of strip you decided on. So for instance, if you go with 2-inch strips, exact 2-inch strips, you're going to sew them together, and then you're going to slice this way 2 inches apart. You're going to make strips this way. But what I do, because I want wiggle room, because it's really hard, especially strips, to, you know, get the seam allowance the same throughout. And it doesn't have to be a 1/4 inch, as long as you're consistent throughout. So my 2 center strips are 2 inches, because those aren't going to be able to be trimmed. My 2 outer strips are a little bit wider than 2. Not quite 2 1/4, but just a little bit wider. So when I sew these together, I can trim and make sure that I have a 6.5 inch block. And when I slice this way, instead of slicing 2 inches, I'm going to be generous that way too. So I'm going to the machine and I'm going to sew these 2 together and these 2 together, and I'll be right back. Now I have this done and this done, and I'm keeping my exact 2-inch strips in the center. And even they're not exact. Now I'm just going to sew the whole thing together. Now I need to slice this into generous 2-inch slices. I prefer my scissors even for this. I'm just a scissor kind of girl. I think it goes faster for me. I do love my new rotary cutter. It's just a rotary stick. I'll link to it down below. It was only 10 bucks at Walmart. And the refills, you can get a lot of refills. Like, I don't know if it's like 10 refills for like, I don't know, 14 bucks, something like that. Anyway, I'll have links to that down below. But what I do, and you do exactly what you want to do, I'm just going to put my strip set at the edge, kind of trim that. And then I'm turning it, and I'm just going to go a little bit beyond the 2-inch line, just a little bit, because I like my wiggle room. And you just do that to your entire strip set. And of course, you can do it, like I said, with your ruler and rotary cutter. But you don't need all kinds of fancy gadgets. They do come in handy, though. I mean, everybody should have that. You just don't have to use it. I give you permission. This does not get tossed. I put that in my drawer of crumb pieces. Get in there! Now, you do that 3 more times. You do other combinations. Where are you? And if you have to duplicate a print, that's fine. You can do that. But I already have this one put together, so let's do the same to this one. So now we have this one, and I have a couple of others made, just so I could be ready. And again, I'm going to make the 2 center ones be a little bit closer to 2 inches. And they're just a little off. My 2 outer ones can be generous. I'm good with that. So I'm going to sew all 4 of these together. This is my least favorite way to do this. I really don't enjoy the strip sets as much as I like making my 4 patches. And this is so incredibly off, all over the place. But again, it's not a concern for me. I know so many of you are probably screaming at your screen saying, "You're doing it all wrong and you're screwing it all up." And, you know, I just don't care about that. I just have fun sewing. I want to do it for the enjoyment of just looking at fabric, cutting fabric, sitting at the sewing machine, using my scissors. And it's going to turn out just fine in the end. No one is going to judge you on your intersections. If they do, then, you know, find another friend. This is the first time that I pressed. Everything else I did was just finger pressing. And now I'm going to trim this. And there it is, a very not perfect 16 patch. And it's going to work nicely with all these others that I made. I have a whole bunch of them, you can see. And then I still have some that haven't been trimmed yet. And then I have a bunch of 4 patches and all kinds of other stuff. So now, I'm going to let you see what I do. I don't care for strip sets and putting 4 together. I'd rather have more variety of how the prints are matched up. strip sets certainly are quicker than constantly sewing little tiny pieces together. So here's what I do. I cut my strip sets a generous 2 inches, and I'm going to sew those two together. Now I have this. I'm just going to put that aside. And now I have 2 more strips. And I like to cut them either a generous 8 inches or a generous 10 inches, so that when I slice into generous 2-inch pieces, I can get 4 or 5 each time without having a lot of wasted fabric. And I would definitely be sitting at my machine and just sending strips together like this, one after another. I don't get up and work on each one. I would just have a whole bunch of strips cut and just, you know, send 2 through and then send 2 more through. All right, but I'm going to go sew these 2 together now. Okay, I have these 2 sewn. But now what I would do is leave them folded, and I would come to my board, and I'm going to make sure it's a little bit over one line. And in this case, I do use my rotary cutter. And sometimes I'll do like 10 like this, because you can put them one over the other, because it doesn't make it too thick, and you just keep doing that. And then whatever you can fit under your ruler. Now I'm just going to go ahead and start cutting. So I'm going to just trim the edge. But now I want to remember, I want a little bit of a generous 2-inch. So I'm going to the 2-inch and a little bit generous. Now I need to move that to a line, so I can go a 2-inch line and a little bit generous. I'm moving it to the line. 2-inch line and a little bit generous. One more. Can I get one more? I would end up with a whole bunch of pieces like this. And I have a lot of them. I have a lot on my sewing machine ready to go. And I just take any 2 at my machine, and I go like that and make my little 4 patch. I'm just going to sew right there. I just try to match up the intersection as best as I can. I don't care about the outsides, because I know that I can trim that. So I'm just going to go zip right there. And I have this. And it's generous, so that could be trimmed down to 3.5 inches. But you know what? I don't trim at this point. If I find that it's really big, like this is almost 4, I'm just going to trim it like this, normally at my machine. I'll just trim a little bit off each side, and that's good enough. Now, I was trimming them at this point when it's a 4 patch, but I've decided not to do that anymore. I just, you know, try to get it like around 3.5 or whatever, and I just pick 4. Let's just pretend this one hasn't been trimmed. I just put, you know, 4 together like that, just like I did in the other video. These are all the same print, because that's just what I have right now. Or let me show you like this one. Look, I have a panda face in one. See how that's really off? I just sit at my machine and trim like that. No rotary cutter needed, no table needed, just by hand. But again, some of these I have smaller than others because of the first initial strips. I mean, I still have a lot of strips to use that are 2 inches, and it didn't work for me. But I'm going to make it all work by just matching them up with bigger pieces. But I would just make a 4 patch like I did in the other video, and I would sew those together. These have not been pressed. Well, these have. Again, that's how I was doing it. I only finger pressed this. When I make my 4 patches, I finger press, I eyeball trim, I sew 4 together, and then that's when I press with the iron and I trim to a 6.5 inch block. So if you're starting with 2-inch squares, the 4 patches should be about 3.5 inches, and then your final block, you should be able to trim to 6.5 inches. And I hope this wasn't overly confusing. It's harder, I think, to use 2 methods in one quilt. I'm going to do a lot of the strip piecing just so I can get 2 together quick and easy, but I also will be doing the you know, individual blocks, because I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to tuck some novelty pieces into this quilt top. So sometimes you see a little thing, or especially things that I have on my auctions, and you're like, who the hell wants to buy one little tiny butterfly? Well, somebody who wants to just get it for next to nothing and to tuck it into a postage stamp quilt. That's who. So, auction link down below. That is it for this one. I hope that it made some kind of sense. I hope I didn't piss too many of you off. There are some people out there who just don't want to be taught things the wrong way. There is no right or wrong. It's whatever works for you. And I promise that all these messy intersections, look how good that one is. See, I can do things right if I want to. But I'm practicing. I swear, after I make, what, a couple hundred of these 4 patches, I'll be pretty good at it, so don't worry about it. See, there's one that's not matched, and that's okay. When you turn it into a quilt, it will still keep somebody warm, and that's all that matters. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll be back with more soon. These episodes will be spaced out several days because I have a lot of sewing I have to do to make this, to have the final product for you. So be patient. I will finish. Bye.